In the evening, after the chores were done, as per tradition, the villagers got together. It was the night of Shivratri, which meant staying up at night and listening to stories of Shiv and Parvati. Prayer and faith are omnipresent. The gents gathered at the Otlo in the Padar. Chilam and beeries were lit, and then the old man among them, all skin and bones and very, sat in a crouching position and looked up at the sky. Everyone just assumed that he was collecting his thoughts for the storytelling. Turns out, he was just taking in the new high, feeling the effect of nicotine spreading in his weak body. One of the men called him, Dada, you are to tell us stories about MahaShivRatri. Oh, yes, yes, said the man. Okay, let me start by this story first, he thought out loud. But since I only remember a tiny bit of it, of whatever the stories I grew up listening, you will have to understand the rest, okay? Clarified and settled, the story was commenced. So there was this demon called Apasmara. He had a giant head of a demon and the body of an infant. After acquiring the boon of immortality from Brahma, Apasmara began terrorizing all the earthly and heavenly beings. He had prayed and gotten the power of affecting people he laid his eyes on to suffer from ignorance and ego. The gods were in panic. The simpletons were scared, of course, but it wasn't in their hands to do anything about it. After all the atrocities worsened, Shiv was prayed to by the rest of the gods. He was the Nilkant, their savior, who was far more capable for this challenge than them. He was superior than the most of a lot. So pleased with the stuti and pleased, Mahadev had to be ingenious in his ways of defeating this demon. He broke into one of the fiercest forms of Tandav and crushed Apasmara under his right foot and kept him fixed there ever since. The iconography of all our deities always have meanings behind them. It will never be just for fun. It is like a coded message for us to decipher. For example, the moon on Shiv's forehead is the symbol of time. We Indians follow the lunar calendar, which means based on the phases of moon we decide which time of the month or the year it is. This conclusively suggests that Shiv is the supreme lord of time, which means he can maneuver it if he wishes to. And which also means that it is functioning smoothly due to him. I'm sure the Nataraj form of his ciphers is full of ciphers too. About 50 meters from the Padar, in the house of Mukhya of the village, the women of the village were all huddled up with Dadiba. She was seated on a jhula in a traditional Gamthi way. The ladies crowded the floor, making garlands and samagri for the Prata Kal Puja. Dadiba started her story. She was much older and wiser than any other in the village. My Dadiba used to say more than one story, she said. I'll tell you all of them with whatever my old brain has been able to retain. Tandavs have been practiced, or shall I say they came into inception by Shiv and Shiva, or as we call her, Shakti. She rolled her eyes and said, these new kids say Shiva and Krishna and Dharma. It is so stupid. Our ancestors have crafted our lipi and bhasha with inexplicably delicate and well thought decisions. Shiv means Mahadev. Shiva means Parvati. Krishna means Lord Krishna, and Krishna means Draupadi. Anyway, she let out a deep sigh and continued. The Tandav Shiv did in his Nataraj form, which meant the universe being rescued from the tyranny of Apasmara, is one of the angry forms. Then there is Tandav and Lasya, the dance form Shiv and Parvati do in their tender and passionate forms. This might be considered as a kind of a courtship dance. MahaShivRatri is the night of powerful energies of high cosmic levels. It is so many events to prove just that. Now, it's hard to tell which event happened in which time frame, as these events happened a long time ago. We have documentation from Ram's time too, but that's very little. Let's continue. During the Samudra Manthan, when the poison was drawn, this potent and extremely dangerous poison posed the threat of destroying every element present. The Shiv had the power of his penance that he could contain this poison. He drank it, and Ma Parvati constricted the poison at his neck so as it does not harm Shiv. The gods and Ma sang praises and stutis of the Nilkant, Mahadev, for this act that is still unimaginable to this day. However, the gods feared that Mahadev should stay up for considerable time to monitor the poison and its effects. And thus, they all, on this day of MahaShivRatri, sang praises of Mahadev. They all were up all night, keeping Mahadev engaged with their chants and stutis of him. They danced and sang hymns all night long. I think I have told you the story, no? This particular day, or should I say night, witnessed even the highest of deities chanting mantras. Imagine the amount of intensity this night holds in terms of energies. Now, next story is that of the fight between Brahma and Vishnu. A little girl chirped, "Ba, why would they fight? Or is it them acting like those characters in a play fight for the story to move ahead?" Dadiva smiled and her eyes lit up. Exactly, Diku. Deities always give us something of an explanation for even the most miraculous events. Everything has a reason. The world functions on a cause-effect terms. Even atheists need something to hold on to their beliefs, no? Dadiba's sarcasm was just for her own fun. Just like that, the event of Shiva appearing in the form of a ling isn't a small enough event that just happened. Brahma and Vishnu had a fight over who is more superior than the other. That's when a blazing pillar of fire appeared between them. It was challenged to them to find either of its end or beginning. Brahma turned into a swan and flew upwards. He tried but failed to find the end of this blazing fire pillar. However, he lied and said that Ketki flower had witnessed him finding the end of this. They were both cursed because they both lied. Vishnu took the form of Varaha and dived deep into the oceans. He tried but could not find the beginning of this fire pillar. And thus he said the truth, and it was established and declared that Shiv and Shivling are Anadi and Anant. He gave the concept of as above, so below. This all took place on this holy day of MahaShivRatri. The kids were innocent and naive enough to actually understand the gravity of this night. That has been pivotal one in many huge events that changed the course of the universe every time. We got goosebumps from Dadiba's entire narration. Dadiba was humming Sat Srushti Tandav Rachayita Nataraj Raj Namo Nama. Nataraj form of Mahadev is another beauty in itself, Dadiba stated. Shiv in his Nataraj form has a ring of fire around him. This fire symbolizes the intensity of his energy, thanks to his extreme penance. One of his two left hands holds the fire. This fire is the very base element of the creation and destruction of any and every known creation possible. And he is the master of it. His right leg crushes Apasmara, while the left is lifted above in a dance form. This left leg, some say, is the indication of the Tropic of Cancer that goes through our Gujarat. His locks are open and in them flowing is Maganga. One of his two right hands holds a Damru, the beat of the universe, I think. The rest left and right hands are in Abhay Mudra. The moon on his forehead signifies that he is the Lord of Time. And the snake around his waist is something about Maya. I don't remember much. One time a Videsi Babu had come to our village searching for stories about Girnar. He had drawn a picture of Natraj and about two other pictures. I did not understand them. When I asked him about them, he said a man named Leo Vinci something, had drawn something similar and other pictures. And what the other pictures were was called an atom. I don't know what he was talking about, but he seemed to be impressed by Natraj. Out at the padar, the men were chanting mantras and prayers. The night progressed and it got a bit chilly, so they decided to light a fire. The old men sat and smoked while the young men made arrangements and lit up the fire. "So, Dada," said the brightest boy of the village, "Shiv is the lord of all kinds of creatures and beings. He is so mysterious, fierce, yet so tender. Tell us a story about his Bhairav form, since it is MahaShivRatri, wouldn't it be apt for the occasion?" The old man got excited. He sat in a sukhasan. His voice was somehow more youthful. "Brahma is depicted to have 4 heads, he started. But there was a 5th head when he was born out of the belly button of Narayana. The 4 heads point to the 4 cardinal directions. They are known each to contain the knowledge of each of the Veds. The 5th head was said to contain the knowledge of all 4 Veds and the timeline of the events of the past, present, and the future, which means he had the secret knowledge, the 5th Ved, what we are assuming. The folklore told by my Dadima goes something like this. It is said that Brahma became arrogant and self-proclaimed himself to be the superior of all deities. It was once that he was with Mahadev and the other deities that his 4 heads were singing praises of Shiv, but the 5th head was speaking obscenities about him. This angered Shiv, who then, with just a flick of his nail, beheaded Brahma's 5th head. Brahma was revived thanks to his good karmas. However, Shiv was ridden with Brahmatya Pap, and Brahma's 5th head stuck to his hand for what seemed like an eternity. Shiv's this form was named as Kapali Bhairav, who then headed for Bhikshatan. This form of his is described as fear-inducing yet beautiful. He would roam around all covered in bhasma, unclad, and Brahma's skull in his hand, in which he'd beg and eat from. Bhikshatan meant he'd roam places begging for alms. He would challenge the Brahmins, especially the arrogant ones, spread terror among them, while the ladies would be mesmerized by his beautiful curvy structures and his form and go crazy, ridden with ecstasy, seeing his raw manhood. In some folklores, it is mentioned that Vishnu took the form of Mohini and accompanied Mahadev. This meant that all of the men followed her like madmen. Mahadev was advised by Vishnu to head towards Kashi, Varanasi. Upon entering the kingdom, Mahadev felt a little relief. He bathed in the common pond, and that's when he was free from the sin and Brahma's skull detached from his hand. He returned to his original form. The day was MahaShivRatri. Another folklore is about Tarkasur's 3 sons. These asurs were blessed by Brahma to have ability to build impregnable fortresses, who then started their atrocities over everyone. Shiv, defeated, got hold over this Tripuri and thus became Tripurari or Tripurai. This day marks the day that is MahaShivRatri, where Shiv once again established himself as the beacon for us in terms of protection and guardianship. Dadiba was now seated in Sukhasan with the village's most recent member in her lap, caressing the baby as she cooed and drooled sleepily. The story of Bhikshatan of Bhairav is also known by you, I think, Dadiba said. This form of Shiv, the Bhikshatan, enraged the scholars of high magnitudes. They were so furious that they cursed Shiv that his ling would fall off. Someone who was wiser than them made them realize that it was indeed Shiv in his Bhairav form, also known as Kapali Bhairav, who was on Bhikshatan. I don't know much about the difference in these anyway. When the realization dawned upon them, they begged for forgiveness from Mahadev. However, Shivji obliged and said that his ling would fall off on earth and is worshipped by all. This points out that it isn't ling after all. It is a metaphor for Shiv in his most potent form. The MahaShivRatri Mela in our neighboring city Junagadh holds a special place for this festival. It is said that for some time Shiv and Shiva dwelled in Girnar, and thus their energies have made it a tapobhumi for hundreds and thousands of aghoris and sadhus alike. On this night, all of the sadhus from all over the world, but I'd say India, gather for special purposes to bathe in the divine Mrugi Kund. This is said to have attained its divinity because of one event. When Mahadev and Ma Parvati were traveling above the region, their divine vastra or their charmambars fell into this kund. Haven't I told you that everything holds energies? You radiate energy of some frequency which is held by your hair, your clothes, even water and things you use on a regular basis. So imagine the energy that their clothes held, and since that is contained in a very small kund, imagine their energies. Now listen to my observations. I understand here that the sadhus, aghoris and sadhaks, just like Shiv, immerse themselves in this kund on this particular tithi to get rid of their sins like Mahadev did. Also, it is a strong belief among them that one is Mahadev himself. It is said that there is always one sadhu less than the number of sadhus that went into the kund to bathe. And when they bathe in each other's energy and aura, making it all the more divine due to their sadhanas and their potent energies. Also, aghoris and sadhus don't have a routine of bathing or cleansing themselves as such. This might be one of the events they clean themselves, like the Kumbh Mela event. Sort of purifying and starting over. Dadiba looked down at the girling Devi. She was like a Devi herself, twinkling eyes and a radiant smile. Her aura made Dadiba feel a sense of divine peace. Dadiba looked up and announced, "The last story before we have to go and bathe for the Pratah Kal Puja is about the union of Mahadev and Ma Parvati." Lord Vishnu had cut Sati's burnt body into 51, some say 52 pieces. This was because Shiv was roaming around like a madman with Sati's body in his arms. He had forgotten his duties for the beings. After this event, he went into extremely deep tapasya. Parvati had her fair share of going through 107 births before being born as Shailja, Parvati, the daughter of Himalaya. We all function because Shiv and Shakti, where Shiv is the Purush and Parvati is the Prakriti. Shiv has the Paurush, that means that he is the ultimate element of all that is male, apart from Narayan himself. Only Shiv is the true man in all of the truest means. Parvati is the Chit Shakti, the driving force of everything, even the littlest thing imaginable. Without Purush and Prakriti coming into union, there won't be anything to function. The universe suffered a great deal when Shiv and Parvati were separated. This separation led to intensified activities of the negative forces like the Asuras and Daityas. The union that gave birth to great cosmic shift in the universe is Shiv and Shakti's union. This started to restore balance with the birth of Kartikeya. The universe breathed a new life in itself when Shiv and Parvati were married. on the 13th day of the Krishna Paksh of the lunar month of Magh. The birds chirped. There was a faint light now spreading in the sky. Dadiba noticed the other group returning. The men were here to fetch them. They fetched their wives and kids, went home for the morning rituals. Dadiba looked at all this and thought how each of them were Shiv and Shakti. If only they had realized this, the significance of this belief could be magical. But again, they probably might not understand the cosmic energy this night entails. That this particular ancestral festival signifies the endings and new beginnings down to cellular levels. She saw the little one in her lap. It looked as if she understood her thoughts. But, oh well, the folks went to their homes discussing the stories. It was the end of the last prahar of the night. They didn't realize that they had been all witness to, or maybe characters of this great play of the energies above. Some things are still very much beyond us to comprehend. Things or truths we are still learned or too dense to grasp. Shivan Vitaya to Shivan Vitaya, Namah Shivaya to Namah Shivaya.